So welcome everyone. There is so many people here, lots of faces that are familiar, lots of faces that are brand new. So welcome everyone. I think, as Brian said, this is probably a record-breaking number of schools that we've had together on one CodeAlong. So great to have you all here. So today we are going to make a North Pole finder. Okay, so just before we get started, we need to warm our brains up a little bit. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and you're going to have to put those teachers in your classrooms to work and get them to do a little bit of typing in the chat. So fastest fingers first, who can tell me what a compass is? Can anybody tell me what a compass is? For directions, said Miss Graham, and Miss Watt. Tell us directions, lots of stuff about directions. Absolutely, helps find magnetic north. A needle that's attracted to, oh, amazing. So you all know what a compass is. And I went upstairs and stole a compass from one of my children's rooms this morning. So that's my compass, which you might be able to see on the camera. I'm not huge at the moment, but you might be able to see that. So that's what a compass is. Now for the trickier question, because we're going to do a little bit of trickier coding, probably the trickiest coding we've done to date today. So we need to really switch on our thinking brains. Who knows what bearings are? And not bearings in mechanics of, you know, kind of making things move smoothly. Bearings in terms of thinking about direction and compass. Does anybody know what bearings are? So let's have a think. Where you find points, how many degrees to turn, like coordinates. Okay, so you guys are already on it. I was worried that maybe we were going to have to do a little bit of explanation and stuff like that. But no, you are absolutely on it. So yes, if you've been doing some maths and you've done some things with angles and stuff like that, that's what bearings are. Bearings are using angles and bits and pieces like that to help us give direction. So we need to just think very briefly about bearings. I'm just getting myself ready to, let me find, I've just got something pop up right above the button to sharing. Let me close whatever that was. So I'm going to share my screen. And let me just make sure I share the right screen. So hopefully you can see an image here that has got north, south, east, west on it. So if you get a few cameras I can see, give me a wave if you've still got your camera on, just so you can definitely see the north, south, east, west. Brilliant. The class that's Mr. or Mrs. Hay, I'm not sure because it just says C. Hay, brilliant, and New Elgin Primary, yep, you've given me the thumbs up, so I know absolutely. So this is north, and what's at north? What's north? Well, the North Pole. Okay, and today we are making a finder for the North Pole. So imagine I'm the lost reindeer. I need to get back to the North Pole by the end of the month because I have a very important job to do. You need to design something that will help me find my way home, find my way back to the North Pole. So that's north there, straight ahead, and that's 0. So this is the important bit that we need to remember. When we're heading towards the North Pole, if we were just going to head straight to 0, that's a very fine line, okay? That's really, really specific. So we're going to make it a little bit easier and we can tweak it later on, but we're going to make it really specific. We're going to make it a bit wider. So we're going to say we want to head somewhere between 315 degrees and 45 degrees, okay? So this area here, hopefully you can see my mouse moving around. I can never remember if you can see that, but somewhere between that arc, between northwest and northeast, okay? So hold those numbers in your head and we're going to get started coding now, okay? So everybody needs to go to the MakeCode website, okay? So you can go to makecode.microbit.org, or you can go to your preferred search engine and type in Microbit MakeCode. Okay, and we'll make sure that I can pop the link. Just let me see if I can grab that link and I can pop it in the chat. And it should take you, many of you have been here before, it should take you to a page that looks a bit like this. Okay, so we're going to go to makecode.microbit.org. Brilliant. Okay, so we should be at MakeCode now and we're ready to get started. So there is a big purple button here called New Project. And we're going to press that big purple button, and we're going to give our project a name. So the name we're going to say is, you can call it what you want. You can call it a Santa tracker if you want. I'm going to call it a North Pole Finder. Because I'm trying to find the North Pole. As I said, I'm a lost reindeer looking for my way home. Okay, and that will take us into this, inside to make code. I'm just going to make some of the text a bit bigger there. Perfect. Oh. So, we got somebody else in the lobby. Let's just let that person in. So hopefully you can see something similar to what I have on my screen. But as there's lots and lots of people here, and we've definitely got some new faces, I'm not sure how many people have used MakeCode before. So I'm just going to give you a very, very quick tour. It also can act as a bit of a refresher, a bit of a opportunity to remember what the different bits are. So on the right-hand side, this big window here that says on start and forever, it's got the blocks of code. That's where you put all your code, all of your instructions go in there. Now, where you find your code in your instructions is this colourful list in the middle where you can click and find all the different bits of code that you might want to be able to use today. And you're able to grab them, drag and drop them in that screen on the right-hand side. And then on the left-hand side, that's your pretend microbit. That's your tester microbit, where we're going to test out our code. You can do all your coding there, but if you do actually have some devices in your class, then we'll do a download later on where you can download it to your actual device. Okay. So first thing we're going to do, we need to get some coding. Let's just make sure we understand how the compass bit works and how we test the compass. So we don't want on start, so let's throw that away back into the middle. Let's tidy that up, and we're just going to use forever, okay? And we're going to go to basic, and we are going to get the one that says show number. So the top of the list, show number, and we're going to drag that and we're going to drop it inside forever. Perfect. And we're going to look for one more bit of code before we do some testing, okay? And we're going to go to input. So that's the second one down, the pinky kind of color. And we're going to scroll down there, halfway down the list, there's one that says compass heading. And we're going to grab that one and we're just going to drop it on top of the 0. Now, sometimes people find that a bit tricky. So you'll see as you get close to the 0, you'll get a little red dot appear. So it'll say, oh, I can join those things together. And it tends to make a little bit of a clicky noise. Okay. Now, what we'll have seen is something started to appear on our microbit on the left-hand side. Okay. And now, I don't know if you'll have noticed, the logo at the top has changed and it's got a little bit of an arrow. And this is going to help us test. So at the moment, it says 90 degrees. And if we quickly zoom back there, we can see 90 degrees is east. And that's the way that arrow's pointing. So if we grab that arrow and point it in a different direction, so if I point it up there, it's at 2 degrees, it tells me 2 degrees. If I spin it all the way around to a funny angle that way, I've got 221. So let's get that code there, get some testing going, and give me a wave. I'll give you all a minute, and you can give me a wave when you've tested, and you can definitely know that the compass is working on that microbit. Right, let's get started because I'm aware of time. We want to get some code working. So we're just going to grab that show number bit. We're just going to move it out the way now because we do want to use some of that code later. Okay, now to do this, we're going to have to do a couple of really tricky things, okay? So this is where we absolutely need to keep our thinking caps on, keep our concentration, and follow what's happening, okay? So the first thing we need to do is make a variable, okay? So variable, if you don't know what a variable is, imagine a variable is, I don't have one here, normally there's a little box. It's like a little box where you store information, and you can access that box from anywhere in your classroom, and it always has the same information. And that's the same inside a computer, okay? We've got nodding happening from Miss Hayes' class, so that's good. So we're going to go down this middle section to the red one that says variables. We're going to click on that. And we're going to click on the thing that says make a variable. And then we're going to use that word I was asking about before, and we're going to use the word bearing. Okay, not that I can spell it properly. There we go, bearing. So we're going to make a variable. We're going to call it bearing. And when we make a variable, when you press OK, you can see behind me there is nothing in that list, but when we press OK, we suddenly get bits of code that we can use for that variable, okay? So spot that, because sometimes it's not easy to spot that, okay? And we are going to grab the one that says set variable, and we're going to put it inside forever, okay? So give me a wave if we are there. Excellent, excellent, okay. Fab, good waving, thank you very much. So we want to set the bearing to what our microbit is measuring in our compass, okay? And we already have that bit of code. We had that bit of code there from show number. So we're just going to grab that one and drop it on there instead. If we don't have that bit of code anymore, remember it's a purple one, so we can get it from inside the purple, well, pinky purple, not sure what shade that is, but inside input, we can grab it from there as well. So our code now says we want to set our bearing variable to whatever our microbit measures as the direction, okay? And that just allows us to do something a bit fancy in a minute. So now we want to be able to find out, we want to be able to ask our microbit, what direction are you pointing in? I need you to, you know, I need to know what direction you're pointing in, okay? So we need something that's called an if statement, because we want to say if you're pointing in this direction, or in fact for this one we want to say if you're pointing between this direction and this direction, I want you to do something. I want you to tell me. I don't care about the other directions, just between those two and the ones we were talking about before. So we're going to go to logic, and we're going to grab the one that says if, and it has an else in it as well. So the one with 3 arms to it. And we're going to add that underneath there. Okay, so find the statement inside logic that's the second one down, and it says if true, then else. Okay, and it's got two little spaces for us to add some code to. Now this is the trickiest bit of code we're going to do all day, okay? Because we're going to do something which the computer programmers of the world will call nesting, because we're going to layer up some code, okay? So to do this, we're going to grab the bits we want and then we'll stick them together. So it's a little Blue Peter style. Let's get all the bits we need first, okay? So this is all about logic, okay? So we're going to use a few things from inside logic. Now the first one we want is the one here that says something or something. Okay, so let's grab that. Don't put it anywhere yet, just put it on the side, and it'll go a funny color because it's not quite connected as a piece of code, but let's grab that one. So the first one we want is the one that's halfway down the list, something or something. Okay, so we're going to grab that. Then we want 2 other blocks, and we'll do a recap in a second. We want the one here that's got the greater than or less than. So it's got a little arrow. So in the arrow, we can change it to either one. We want 2 of those. Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to grab another one of those. So we want one with or in the middle, and then 2 with the little greater than and less than symbols. Okay. And we want to make sure that we have one that's less than and one that's greater than. Okay, so we've got the 2 different kinds. Okay, now they look a bit funny at the moment. They're not very clear in the color because we haven't added them as a bit of code, but hopefully you can see them okay. In fact, what we could do, I wonder if I can just make it very slightly bigger. So you can see, because when they go that funny color, it's to help us know that the code doesn't work yet, but it doesn't make it very easy to see on stage. So once you've got the one that's got or in the middle and the one that's got greater than and less than in the middle, give me a wave. Okay, lots of thumbs up. So we are going to build up and layer our code, okay? So I'm going to make it slightly smaller again, just so it's easier. So inside that true, the first thing I want you to do is put the or in, okay? So we're going to put the or in there first. The or block. So the or block is inside logic, and keep going down. It's under the heading that says Boolean, and the or one's just under. There's an and an or. So it's just down there. Perfect. Great. So put the or one in first. Okay, we got the or one in first. So we're going to say if it's this or that. Okay, that's what that bit of code does. So what we're going to do is we are going to grab our we're going to grab this bit of code first, which is our less than. So if it's less than, we're going to go there. And if it's greater than, it's going to go in that other one. So this is where it's really tricky because we've layered a few bits of code on top of each other. Okay, so I'm going to take them back out again just so that we can see that. So we've got the or already in there at the moment. And if you mouse over, it goes a little bit white so you can see that bit of code. Then we're going to add in the less than, and we're going to add in the greater than. And you know, at the moment, it doesn't look like it makes any sense at all. So I think what we'll do is we'll add some more information in there, and then I think it will make sense. Okay, so we've already got this first line where we've got our variable called bearing, and we want to test whether our bearing is between those 2 points. Okay, so we're going to go back into the variables box in the middle, which is halfway down the list. It's the red one, and we're going to grab just that circular one at the bottom, which is our actual variable, and we're going to grab that and we're going to drop it on top of that very first 0. So we're going to say if the bearing is less than, and then it's like, oh, I can't remember. I'll have to go back quickly for a second and check. So actually, I want it to be less than 45. Okay, so there we go. I've checked my diagram, and I can just type in the number 45 there. Okay, so we went to variables, we grabbed bearing, and we dropped it in there, and then we decided we wanted, if our bearing was less than 45, then I want you to do something. Or, now what would the or be? So if it's less than 45, I wonder if I can try and get both of them on the screen at the same time. Possibly. So we're looking for less than 45 or greater than. What would be the greater than number? Can anybody answer that? So can anybody tell? Yes, Miss Hay, 315. That's what we want here. And Miss Malcolm's class, P7. Yep, great. Good job, good job. Okay, so what we're just going to go back and do here, same as this one, we're going to go to variables, we're going to grab bearing, we're going to add it inside the 0. So I tried to add it somewhere else, so just watch for that. And we're going to make this 315, okay? Now this is the hardest thing we are going to do all day, and the rest is all fun and plain sailing, okay? Right, so let's add 2 bits of code just so we can test this, okay? 2 easy bits of code, 2 bits you should have seen before. So we'll go to basic, and we're going to grab one that says show string hello. Let's add that underneath the if, and I'm going to say North Pole. If you've made a Santa tracker, you could say Santa, but I'm making a North Pole finder, so I'm going to write North Pole, okay? And I'm going to grab the same bit of code again, which was the one that says show string. Whoops, that was tricky for me to get my teeth round. And I'm just going to delete it so there's nothing in there. And what this means is this code says if I'm pointing to nearly north, which is what I want, I'm going to show a message that says North Pole. But if I'm not, if I'm pointing south or in another direction, I just want my Microbit screen to be blank. I don't want it to say anything at all. I only want it to tell me when it's pointing north, okay? So that allows us to do the testing, okay? So I can now go up here. At the moment, it's pointing at 90 degrees. That's not showing me anything on the screen, but if I was to grab the arrow and point it up there, as soon as I get within the range that I've given it, it tells me that that says North Pole. But if I was to spin it all the way around, if I was to spin it all the way around to the bottom, it takes a second because it's busy still writing the message from the last time. but it's finished saying North Pole. Now that I'm pointing almost south, not telling me anything at all. But if I spin it back up again towards the top, it starts to give me my message. So that helps me test whether my code, whether my parameters here at the top are working. Okay, so we just added two things from basic, both of them the same bit of code called show string. And I've written as North Pole. You could call it Santa, you could call it North, you could just call it N if you were being super efficient. And the other one is just blank. So it said hello already, or that's not hello. So all I just needed to do was go in there and just delete those letters out the way. And then it shows two little quotes to say it's blank. Great. So I'm going to show a couple of ways of customizing, and then I'll come back to the chat and see if there's any more questions for help. Let me just make that back, just so that everybody else can be customizing and we can make sure everybody's at the same point. So one way that you can customize, or one way I like to customize, is I quite like when you can draw a picture on the Microbit. So there's one that's called Show LEDs, and I'm going to draw a picture, and let's see if anybody can figure out what I am trying to draw, because it's a bit tricky when you've only got so many blocks to colour in and out. Does anybody, any of the classes out there, know kind of what a Hoover? Oh, Mr. Gilchrist, my skills are not amazing, but I do prefer Mrs. Franchetti's and Mrs. Kearney. Yeah, absolutely, they're a Hoover. Mr. Gilchrist.
It's a witch's hat. It could be Halloween, the witch's hat.
It could be. It was, so my son said it looked like the sorting hat, which it could be the sorting hat. It could be putting me in, hopefully not in Slytherin. That would be a little bit scary. But it could be Santa hat. So you could draw a picture in there. It doesn't have to be a Santa. You could draw a reindeer. You could draw whatever you like. Mr. Clark Brian thinks it's a traffic cone. Well, it's a very festive traffic cone. So one of the ways that you can personalize it is to draw your own picture. And then when I test it over here, afterwards, it's going to say North Pole. What I'm going to do just for speed is I'm going to change my North Pole back down to an N just for quickness, because it takes a little while to scroll the word North Pole. So now it says N, and it shows my Santa hat. Okay. Now you remember from times before that sometimes if you want the picture just to stay on for a little while, it's worth grabbing in here, scroll a little bit, the one that says pause. So you can get it just to pause for a few minutes. I'll have to turn that one back to the top again. So it holds a Santa picture a few minutes, what am I saying? And you can change the time there. So I might want to say, I want you to show me the Santa hat for half a second. Point it in the right direction. So my Santa hat comes up for just a little bit longer. In fact, that wasn't a half a second. That was 500 milliseconds, which is half a second. I guess half a second is not something I'm very good at judging. So that's one way you can personalize, is to add a picture. And then I'm going to show you one more other way. And then you can tell me if there's other things you've had thoughts on, and we can do something. So the other thing is, if I think, and I don't know if I shared with my sound actually, but you can just imagine I will work. There's lots of sounds built in. So if you scroll right down under Melody Advanced, you can play all sorts of sounds. So that one is melody dum dum dum. So you can imagine it goes dum dum dum. That doesn't feel very festive, but I'm going to grab that one anyway. And I think the one that says mysterious, where's mysterious on that list? Am I on the wrong one? I'm looking for mysterious. This is not a melody. Oh, now I've taken all my blocks out. Wait a minute. I had one pre-prepared and everything zoomed up so big I don't know how far to scroll. Let's have a look. There we go. Right down to the V2. I'm sure that there's one inside here that is mysterious. There we go. I think mysterious, which let's have a quick test. Kind of feels a little bit festive. Don't know if you heard that. You might need to test it on your own.
Yeah, I don't think you're sharing the sound from your browser, but that's okay. We'll believe you that it sounds mysteriously Christmassy.
I mean, it's just a little bit twinkly. is a little bit twinkly. So there is a couple of ways to personalize. Now I'm going to do one more thing before you experiment, and we can check on anybody who needs a little bit of help and getting the last bits of code. We can see what you've done. Any of those things is I'm going to tell you about downloading. So Mr. Johnson, I'm just about to get onto that. So when you've got code that you're happy with, you are going to download it to a device. So I'm going to plug in a Microbit myself, and I'm going to press the big purple button at the bottom, and it's going to say connect your Microbit, which I've already done. I'm going to follow through the instructions. So you just follow through the instructions. If it's the first time that Microbit's been connected, it might ask you to pair. It's going to have a little moment where it says, I'm thinking about it. The code will zoom across my screen. It's not feeling quite as fast and zoomy as I thought. But then something a little funny that Mr. Johnson spotted is going to happen on your Microbit the first time you do this. So I'm going to talk you through that. So what happens, I'm just trying to work out how to get the camera to come back on there, is a message will come up. The first time you put your code on, boys and girls, a message will come up to say tilt, fill the screen. And what you need to do, let's see if I can do it, is you just need to keep moving your Microbit around. It's kind of like a game. You want all of the lights on the LEDs to fill up. Let's have a look. Oh. And then it will make a noise because it's happy. And that's calibrated your compass, because the compass needs to know which direction. So the grown-ups in the room will remember early days of using Google Maps, and it can't locate you, and it asks you to do a figure-of-8 motion and swing your mobile phone around. And that's just basically just helping it calibrate. Okay. So let me just put my light back on. So very first time you put it on an actual device, you will want you to calibrate your compass, and then your code will start working. Okay. So it just says tilt to fill the screen, and you just have to keep moving it around until every single one of those red dots on the front work. Okay. So let's find out if anybody's managed to do that. Let's have a look in the chat. What are the questions like?
We have questions about downloading apps and things, but I think it should just be okay if you press download, isn't that right?
Yep, just press download and follow the instructions on the screen, and it will talk you through pairing the device and finding it. I wonder, I tried to pin the camera. I wonder if it stopped showing the code. Can you see the code again now, Brian?
Yeah, they're just asking to scroll down a bit to see the else statement, but I've just said you can put anything in the else statement, a blank message or another picture of an X or whatever.
Let me just, so many things. Let's move that. I'm going to zoom out very slightly so you can see it all in a oneer. Perfect, because that's all loads and loads of code. So everybody has done an amazing job. And these things like adding a sound and adding an image and changing up the message, they're all just ways that you can personalize it. The really big thinking stuff was this bit at the start where we set a variable, made sure that it pulled the variable stuff in from the Microbit, and then helped us identify where we pointing in the right direction. And the rest of the stuff was just about us personalizing it and making it do a message that we wanted to do.